everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Casino Business Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Shacklett from URComp. And today we've got a special guest, Nathan Green, CEO and co-founder of New Level Radio, newlevelradio.com. They work with casinos all around the country. And I don't want to explain it because I know you're going to do it a million times better. So Nathan, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. You actually have a radio voice, it sounds like. So that's perfect.
Hey, you know what? Back in college, I was the voice of UC Davis sports radio for a little bit there.
I could tell right when you kicked it off. I was like, okay, he's got a great voice.
Oh man, well, thank you. I always like when the guests butter me up. You might be the first one to ever do it.
Right.
Well, why don't we talk about? I love hearing entrepreneur origin stories. So, actually, before we get to that, why don't you tell us what New Level Radio does, and then I want to get in your origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, first of all, back to you. Thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate you having interest in what we do, and I appreciate the time for sure. So, origin story. So, well, first, like you said, I'll give you a little brief kind of 10,000-foot view of what New Level Radio does. So we are the industry leader in the gaming and hospitality space for curated music, messaging, video experiences throughout the property. So we essentially come into a property, analyze who's in the space, demographics, any kind of socioeconomic information that we can have, pretty much a blueprint of the consumer or gamer. And then based off that information, we curate playlists for specific areas. So for the casino floor, for the spas, for restaurants, for pretty much any common space where people are hanging out. Now, one big kind of thing that we do that's different is every single list and client we work with, we curate from scratch, right? So you have some legacy products in the market that are traditional kind of background music providers that have been around for quite some time. And those models are based on kind of channels of music or just, specific genres. So we curate song by song by song with real humans to actually kind of build out an environment that's inviting to the guests and actually who's in the space. So that's kind of what we do from the music side. And then also from a marketing content side, we produce, record, and schedule promos that can play on the casino floor or anywhere else applicable to talk about concerts, new restaurants, celebrity chefs, anything that's going on from a marketing and promotions element on the casino floor. So that's kind of just a quick snapshot of what we do. But in a nutshell, our whole business model is to enhance the excitement and the vibe for people in casinos and hotels is what we do.
That's really cool. And it makes sense about when you talked about the demographic. Like if I go to a casino in Biloxi, it might be more of a country vibe or something like that. Whereas maybe in Pittsburgh or something, it's more rock and roll. I mean, is that kind of what you're talking about with like how you?
Yeah, no, you hit it on the head. Absolutely. I mean, obviously, geographic destinations play a big role in what music works, right? Even within a demographic that might be similar. So you had a great point. Biloxi, we actually work with a few clients in Biloxi, and a 55-year-old male in Biloxi is going to be a different type of playlist than a 55-year-old male in Colorado, right? It's going to be different music. There's going to be some crossover on genres. There's going to be some kind of baseline music crossover based on their age. But the reality is the market specificity really dictates what should be played. And that's why a curated solution really works well for casinos and hotels. And really kind of just a dovetail onto that is why we ended up finding ourselves working in gaming and hospitality so much was because the gaming community really understands marketing and really understands the uniqueness of who's in their space. And they have a lot of data and a lot of information on who's actually in the space. So that really allows us to shine in what we do and really dial in song by song and playlist by playlist of what really is going to make sense for who's in the space.
So I imagine starting a business like that. So you founded in 2007, and I remember I got in the casino industry. I remember talking to our music guy at Harris Tahoe, and I think we had at the time, it was like XM radio or one of these things. And he's like, well, today I'm feeling like top 40 and that's what we're playing in the casino. And then he's like, maybe we'll switch to 80s music. And it was 80s mix, but it was just kind of one of those two. But I mean, that was a big player in the space. So it's gotta be intimidating starting to business like this going against these huge, well-known brands all over. So why did you start it? Tell me about the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seemed like a behemoth when we first started, right? And I don't even know, honestly, if we saw the long-term giants we'd be going up against in the beginning, right? I mean, so my business partner and I, who co-founded the company with me back in 2007, we both came from a terrestrial radio and TV background. So I was living in Hawaii as kind of the top marketing and sales guys for a radio station. He was the afternoon DJ, right? So what happened was he was getting some of our clients coming to him and saying, "Hey man, can you record like a little spot for my bar or my restaurant?" Because he was kind of a well-known on-air talent, right? And so just kind of literally the light bulb kind of went off. It's like, all right, right now if you go into a business, it's just background music. There's not a lot of thought process that goes into it. There's not a lot of marketing steam behind it. It's just like, to your point, hey, let's just turn on some classic rock and just roll with it because we think that's kind of our vibe, right? So first off, there's got to be a need for something they're doing, right? So we saw a need in the market where there was a gap in a really curated kind of business relationship style partnership where you can actually go in and work with the client to identify what really makes sense for their business. So that was kind of the aha moment. Then, we really just kind of hit the ground running. We kind of made like little mix samples that had some promos in it with some clips of music. I think literally our first meeting, we took like a Sony Dream Machine from the hotel and like played it on a CD to like this huge like telecommunications company in Hawaii. So, we were just really kind of figuring out it as we went. But we did absolutely understand that there was kind of a gap in the market for something. And it did kind of kick off fast. And we really started with tourist attractions and retail and restaurants and things like that. And then there was just a slow kind of natural evolution to where companies that really understand marketing and have a large spaces where they're getting tons of different people throughout the day, right? I mean, if you're in Vegas, the type of crowd at 6 a.m, even in the same casino, could be completely different than Friday night at 2 a.m, or if they have the Country Music Awards, or if Lady Gaga is performing, right? So, little bit of a long-winded answer to your question there, but I think most importantly, there was a gap in the market that we saw. There was people that we were already working with that had a need for something that was different, and we were able to kind of capitalize on that need. And then really why we're called New Level Radio is the business model was basically your own radio station in your location, right? So we record sweepers. Hey, you're listening to MGM Grand Radio, the hottest music on the strip, or name the station. Use it just like a radio station. Our breaks are just like stations. So we're not interrupting the music for a promo like, a Target blue light special. Please visit the right. So it's kind of the methodology is that of a radio station, which people are comfortable with, right? They're comfortable with a dip in the music, a promo, and then back to the music. So that's kind of how we got going.
And was the initial thing that got these hospitality companies and these locations to bite, were they more intrigued by, I can splice in my promotions at first, or was it the tailored music list? Or maybe it was a combination of both. But what do you feel like was that hook that really got those first couple customers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think definitely it was a combination of both. There was not a lot of businesses that were actually doing any promotions whatsoever in their locations back in 2007, 2008. There was a few here and there, but it was definitely not as mainstream. It's pretty mainstream now. I mean, if you go into a lot of retail or locations, you're going to hear some kind of messaging. So I think there was an attraction there. I also think that there was a serious appetite for a curated experience. And to your point, you mentioned earlier, hey, like back when I was in gaming in 2007, it was like soup of the day, right? Our GM's like, or whoever is like, I feel like listening to 90s today. And I feel like listening to the 80s. And the next day we want, 90s rock, right? And that's not a marketing strategy. And more importantly, it's not cohesive with who's in your space, right? So if I'm a 48-year-old guy coming into your casino every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2:00 after I get my paycheck, I want to feel like you're talking to me, right? If I'm dropping my hard-earned money in your property. So just having huge deviations of playlists for no apparent reason is not really a strategy. So I feel like there was definitely an appetite to have a more curated experience. Casinos and hotels have always understood that guest experience is vital and critical to their business model. So I really feel like they understood us, right? They're like, okay, Nathan, you get it. Like, this is what we've been needing, something where we can go from Elton John to REO Speedwagon to a hip hop song, right? Within the right beats per minute and context of that. So I think to answer your question, it was definitely a combination of both the marketing capability, but also a truly curated experience.
And so as you developed, obviously you've grown, you're nationwide. Were there, like, what are some of the stats you could point to or stories where, I mean, breaking it, you mentioned MGM, like you're starting to get into big brands. I'm assuming that they were like, well, you're asking us, I'm guessing that your price point maybe is higher than Sirius or one of these ones that aren't tailored. So you had to point to something to be like, hey, this is why it's worth investing a little bit more. So how did you, I guess, explain that ROI to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point, because obviously when we were coming into the market, we definitely weren't the cheapest solution. We're still not. We never will be, just because of the time and effort and just obviously what we put into what we offer. I think that the desire from the properties level was something very different. We were definitely a kind of disruptor in the background music space for sure. So just that kind of like, hey, this is different. Like, these guys are. So we walked into every meeting, and we still do, with a customized demo for our clients. So we already had something ready to go. Music cut up songs with promos talking about their business, their location, what they had going on. So I think right off the bat, there was a value proposition that was different, right? So the way it sounded, the way it was presented was a huge deviation from what had been pitched before with the traditional background legacy products. So that kind of helped us just to get our foot in the door. And then to your point, I think our first casinos were in Colorado. But then our first Vegas casino was Luxor, I believe, or Excalibur, one of the two. They were right about the same time. And that just obviously up the floodgates were open then from a validation perspective, right? Because we got the biggest fish in the game, right? On every casino, whether they admit it or not, even though their strategy they may not align with Vegas, everybody looks to Las Vegas internationally and nationally as kind of the golden goose of gaming. So that really helped validate what we were doing, and it allowed us to kind of grow and expand throughout the country.
Now, when you go into a meeting with a pitch with one of these executives, is there something where you're like, oh, this guy's an audiophile, this is slam dunk? Like, can you just tell early on, like, the guy just doesn't care about music, and you're like,
yeah,
oh, enough, versus like, oh, this guy loves music, he's going to get it?
No, that's such a, I'm glad you asked that, because it's so true that, it's really helpful when we have people that are engaged in music. So, this is not a knock, but it's like, we really prefer to work with marketing or upper level management or VPs of entertainment, right? Because they understand just how important the music is. And a lot of those folks are super interested. We have an executive we work with for a long time. He would literally text me like, hey, Nathan, can we add, these 5 songs to the night list? Like, and I love that, because he was so into it and so into music. So yeah, you can definitely tell people that appreciate the kind of the curated side of what we do rather than just music, right? Like IT, AV guys, they're amazing, but they just want to know it's going to work, right? They're like, how much work is this going to be? What's the equipment? Is it going to fail? Is, how often are we have to update stuff? Are we going to have to, right? They're more kind of compartmentalized on just the functionality of what we do. Marketing, CEOs, people that understand the whole experience, they're the ones that usually are excited. Like, oh man, like we can day part this out. And then, we have 20% Spanish speakers on Friday nights. Can we drop in some Latin pop? We're like, yes. And then we kind of just can bounce it off. And it's fun for us, right? Because we're music guys. Like, this is what we love to do.
Yeah. So what is the onboarding process? So you come up with a tailored kind of mix when you're pitching a casino, and then they're like, all right, let's go with you. And then what's kind of that next step of like really getting into their demographics and figuring out the right mix for them?
Yeah, I mean, once the onboarding process is pretty easy. I mean, it's mostly provide us all the demographics information you have that you want to provide. If there's any deviation in those demos based off times of day, days of the week, events you're doing, obviously do's and don'ts are super important. Like we definitely don't want country. We definitely do want 80s, kind of those baseline things of just what they absolutely do and do not want. And that really gives us a blueprint. But what's really critical is that this is not a set it and forget it type situation, right? We are ongoing curators throughout the whole process. So, and when I mentioned in the beginning, that's kind of a client-driven relationship that was more of an impersonal medium before, we really took that to heart of like, we build relationships with our clients. They're like, hey, Nathan, we just realized Tiesto is going to do an autograph signing in the lobby tonight. Can we pump his music into the lobby, this for the next 2 hours, like things like that we can do on the fly that just nobody else can really offer. So that's kind of how we onboard. And then the playlist, everything just continues to evolve and build based off feedback from the client, based off feedback from guests. And that's kind of how we roll with it.
And so, running your business leader, obviously there's always the revenue side and the cost side. So it sounds like there's the cost is of course sales, and then you've got you and a team that are kind of tailoring that mix for your clients. Is there a cost to the actual music? Like, how does that work? Are you paying a couple pennies every song that plays, or does it vary by artist, or how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So every single song that is performed or played in our locations is licensed and we pay for. So obviously, you have all the public performance rights organizations, though they handle the rights of the songs that are being played in spaces. So absolutely. And that's a critical part too. I'm glad you mentioned that, because especially in the past, a lot of people like, hey, we just have somebody's iPod playing, or somebody's got their laptop hooked up to Pandora. And it's like, whoa, like, if you're a small mom and pop restaurant, you're probably going to be okay. But these large, and not even necessarily then, but these larger organizations, the infringement, I mean, one song can cost a business $250,000 on an infringement claim, right? So from a licensing standpoint, it's really important that you're using, a product that has all the licensing organizations covered.
Got it. Well, I know we're coming up on time, but you mentioned, or I actually heard that you guys are launching kind of a new branch. You're expanding beyond just audio, inside facilities. You're launching something else. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, so key in any business is always growth and expansion of product offerings that you think fill a need. I mean, we, obviously our core business is music on property, video, audio visual stuff, but we are naturally and inherently doing so much marketing and PR for our clients, just with the promos and the planning out of everything they're doing on a monthly basis, that we actually did launch a PR division and marketing division of our company about 6 months ago, where we're coming in and really helping with from soup to nuts from a marketing and PR standpoint. So everything from marketing implementation, PR, outside and earned media, LinkedIn, social media campaigns, pretty much A to Z. And that's been really exciting for us, just because we were doing so much of that anyways. It was kind of similar to how we started. We had clients coming to us say like, hey, like, we're launching this huge initiative or big expansion, and, how can you help us kind of grow and get the word out to local media outlets or within our property? And so that kind of was just a natural fluid transition for us to start NLPR, which is a PR and marketing division of our company. And it's been great. We're already helping out a handful of our clients and onboarding different industries. So it's going to be a big part of our business for the next, foreseeable future, I assume.
Well, that's exciting. I'm sure like there's a GM listening right now that's calling AV, and he's like, hey, you don't have your laptop plugged in right now. I don't want to pay that $250,000 fine. So, so if somebody, a casino executive hears this, they want to learn more, where should they go?
Yeah, great question. So the easiest way to reach us is just newlevelradio.com. We have all the information on our website of what we offer, how to reach us, request a demo. We can put together custom audio demos for anyone that has interest. And that's the easiest way to get in touch with us, and always happy to talk music and chop it up about what's going on in gaming anytime.
All right. Well, last question. What's on your playlist right now? What are you rocking to?
Oh man, that's, so I'm 48, so I'm a 90s kind of hip hop kid. So that's like kind of my go-to music, but just in the nature of what I do, I listen to everything, man. I'm a huge like Celtic Woman fan I listen to country I'm a big 80s guy, but if I had to listen to one thing exclusively, it'd probably be like 90s hip hop. That's just because in my formative years of music, when I was making mixtapes for parties and stuff, that's kind of was my go-to stuff.
Like Tupac.
Yeah, man. Tupac and the Biggie. Yeah, I mean, NWA. I mean, DJ Quick. It was like pretty in the weeds and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, man.
Well, Nathan, hey, this has been truly a pleasure. Congrats on all the success. I love it. I love talking to entrepreneurs like you and just finding that niche and just growing an amazing business. So congratulations, everybody. Check out newlevelradio.com. And Nathan, thanks so much for being here.
Greg, thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's always my pleasure. I'm happy to chat about music anytime. So I appreciate you very much.